begin to pick up now on the explanation or deal with the poem directly. As to the poem at the beginning, the first two lines refer entirely to the activity of the golden flower. The two next lines are concerned with the mutual interpenetration of sun and moon. The sixth month is the clinging, the lead fire. The white snow that flies is the true polar darkness in the middle of the fire trigram. That is about to turn into the receptive. The third watch is the abysmal, water. The sun's disk is the one polar line in the trigram for water, which is about to turn into the creative. This contains the way to take the trigram for the abysmal and the way to reverse the trigram for the clinging or the fire.
All right, just reviewing those terms a little. The clinging, the fire, we've tried to associate with the pineal. The abysmal, the water, with the Leiden. The receptive is the fully yin sign, and the creative is the fully yang sign. And we're talking about the mutual interpenetration, the moving relationship of these. The following two lines of the poem have to do with the activity of the pole of the great wane. Now, I can't find what the great wane is. Wane means wagon, or it means way. It's a wheel. It's constellation what? Ursa Major, which is the Great Bear, the Big Dipper. All right, it rotates around the polar star, then. That's part of the idea, I guess. And that would be associated with this rotation movement through the trigrams that we're discussing. Do you understand? The rise and fall of the whole release of polarity. Water is the trigram of the abysmal. The eye is the wind of the gentle. Now, the gentle is over here to the southeast. The light of the eyes illumines the house of the abysmal. That is, that which is in the pituitary, that illumines the Leiden, and controls there the seed of the great light. In heaven, this means the house of the creative, that's the father aspect. Wandering in heaven, that's the pituitary. One eats the spirit energy of the receptive. That's this lower one. This shows, this expression, one eats, remember, associated with this center, the gonads, we say, give us this day our daily bread. There is to be raised an energy from that center. Wandering in heaven, one eats the spirit energy of the receptive. This shows how the spirit penetrates the energy, how heaven penetrates the earth. This happens so that the fire can be nourished. Now, again, if you want to follow that, you'll have to familiarize yourself more and more with the trigrams, with the meaning of the trigrams, and the rotation of that. A couple of things I'd like to share with you about the trigrams for esoteric purposes, that as you begin to study the trigrams, you find historically, for certain reasons, that a number has been assigned to these lines. All whole lines, I'm reading from the I Ching now, all whole lines are 9. All divided lines, 6. Therefore, when you have 3 divided lines, you have 6, 6, 6. But I think if you will study that meaning of the mark of the beast as it's given in the readings, in the commentary on the Revelation, and study paragraph 95 and 99 that we're coming to, you can get a sense of how that works. But as you study the trigrams and their positioning, this forms the basis of the I Ching and what those mean. And one other thing I'd like to call your attention to in such a study, the I Ching, the edition I have, lists those trigrams with names. For example, there's a family. Now this that is fully yang, that we are referring to, the pituitary, is in the Chinese tradition addressed as the father. And in terms of natural objects, it's associated with heaven. So there, you can begin to look for some parallels. You will never find perfect parallels, but there are these that are interesting or challenging. Now, with that, the one that we're associating with the water center, their association is with water. That one we're associating with the pineal has as the natural object fire and sun. And so there begins to be a fit of this chart with the chart that we have.
I think we should start adding these to our charts.
Yes.
For the benefit of our Chinese friends.
There are correlations that you can pursue that make sense. They will never fit perfectly. Someone was asking me, they said, well, in our teaching, they don't have the Leiden, they have the spleen or the pancreas or something. Well, you will just not work out perfect correlations. And one of the reasons is they do not exist. There is not an ultimate science here. Edgar Cayce warns about this very strongly in the interpretation of the Revelation. He says it's relative. It will be relative to this experience and background and structure and perspective of the individual. You can't nail it down. So he associates Mars and yellow with the solar plexus and adrenals. And someone says, oh no, that'll be red. All right, if it's red for you, fine. But one way to look at it is yellow. See, this is the problem. You just can't nail it down ultimately. You can get enough sense of correlation to begin to see there are underlying laws or principles that are working here. And one of the things I hope that effect would be that it would send you back to the material closest at hand and most meaningful, the Edgar Cayce readings, for your deeper study of that.
One of the major points, Herb ran over this quickly, and we could say it another way, I think, very directly and simply. You can, if you wish, pursue the way of karma. It is a way of partial successes and partial suffering, and the suffering can be intense. Meditation is a way to heal karma, to cleanse, and it's a much better way, because you can get to the point where you scream and howl with the karmic patterns, and the suffering can become too intense. So the meditation and the following of this path, or the way, or the pattern of the Christ, really, is a better way.
The way of grace?
It's the way of grace.
Now, we have a chance to understand exactly how that works. Why is it that meditation is a way of moving to grace and out of karma? Because we are working at this level between where there's the non-manifest and the manifest, and we're getting that energy working toward mobilizing a different pattern than that from which we've already built and which will crunch in on us in time, unless we mobilize it in respect to the golden flower pattern. The reason it can be changed is because there's a living energy in a creative process, and we have a chance to raise that living creative energy and begin to build another kind of body than the kind that's been programmed for us by virtue of our previous lives.
Finally, the last two lines point to the deepest secret, which cannot be dispensed with from the beginning to the end. This is the wishing of the heart and the purification, washing of the heart and the purification of the thoughts. This is the bath. The holy science takes as a beginning the knowledge of where to stop, and as to an end, stopping at the highest good. Its beginning is beyond polarity, and it empties again beyond polarity. This bath, Herb, do you think we're dealing with this in a symbol of the baptism in Christianity? Mm-hmm.
There's also the washing in the blood. This is the bath.
Mm-hmm.
The washing of the blood.
There's no redemption of sins except for the shedding of the blood, and though my sins be as scarlet, they'll be white as snow if washed in the blood. What's all that about? We could, if we wanted to work with that, go right to the physiology of meditation. Get a sense that it's the blood. You see, when we say centers, we're talking about ductless glands. That in their known functioning, they operate by hormonal secretions that go directly into the blood. Now, if the blood begins to carry a pattern of integration, we may say it carries the pattern of the lamb. Instead of the pattern of a lion, that would say, get ready to fight. And as you dwell on the lamb as an ideal, then the hormonal secretions appropriate to that are issued into the blood, and then the blood becomes the cleanser, because it begins to instruct all the cells of the body how to function in oneness and in their proper healing operation.
I think it's important to remember here the tremendous changes that take place in our bodies with the dying of cells and the rebirth of new cells constantly. And hence the importance of the regularity, the persistence of the meditative state begins to program, actually to change, because the mind is at the cell level, and it begins to change the whole energy pattern of the body, gradually, bit by bit, step by step. Here a line, there a line, there a line, here, on one after another. Little bits begin to change. We're not at all the same people, even physically, that came here at the beginning of this week. Millions and millions and millions of cells have died, and new ones have been reborn. They all have mind.
With slightly different patterns and consciousnesses.
Yeah. And we've added with what we've added here, but the meditation is the regular way of dealing with this and programming and awakening that image that is within each cell, the spiritual life.
In this paragraph it mentions the washing of the heart and the purification of the thoughts. One definition of meditation is motivated mentation. And if you use this definition, you can understand how there are negative forms of meditation or destructive forms, just as there are positive, when the mentation is motivated. So Jesus says, as a man thinketh in his heart. You see, you put the thoughts and the heart together. That's the emotion or motivation or the centers along with the nature of the thought. Thinketh in his heart. That's motivated mentation. So it's the working of these together, the washing of the heart and the purification of the thoughts, the combination of that. Now the Holy...
Excuse me. Your first definition of meditation that you use, the one that's quoted so much, that meditation is the alignment of the body and the mind with the spiritual purpose. This is a thought process here, too.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Tuning the mind.
Tuning the mind.
Tuning the body. The Holy Science takes as a beginning the knowledge of where to stop, and as an end, stopping at the highest good. Now, association of that from the readings is so many times, he says, why turn to any other when he is so high? Stopping only at the highest good. Why have any other ideal?